The cat had been staring at the wall for 11 days before the pediatrician's appointment changed everything. His name was Oslo. He was an 8-year-old Norwegian forest cat with a coat that required 15 minutes of brushing twice a week and an attention span for anything that was not his primary concern of approximately 0. His primary concerns, in order, were food, the bird feeder outside the kitchen window, and since the arrival of 7-month-old Cora, the small person in the room at the end of the hallway, the wall he was staring at was the wall of Cora's room, from outside. Grace, Cora's mother, had noticed it on the 3rd day and photographed it as something to eventually share with someone because it was visually unusual. A large gray and white cat in full alert position, all 4 paws planted, staring at a wall with the intensity of a cat that believes something is happening on the other side that requires monitoring. She had not connected it to anything specific. Oslo stared at things. He was a cat. Staring was within his general behavioral repertoire. On the 11th day, Grace took Cora to her 7-month well visit. The pediatrician who examined Cora was thorough in the way that pediatricians are thorough at 7 months. Developmental assessment, physical exam, length and weight, the full catalog. She spent some time listening to Cora's chest. She listened from the front, then from the back. She asked Grace to hold Cora upright while she listened again. She said, "I want to look at something. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you are in the right place. Subscribe so you do not miss the next one." What she had found was a subtle cardiac murmur. Not the innocent functional murmur that appears and disappears in otherwise healthy infants, but a structural sound with a quality that warranted cardiology consultation. Grace was given a referral to pediatric cardiology at the Children's Hospital and told that this finding might be nothing, that many structural murmurs in infants were minor, but that a complete evaluation was warranted and that timing was good. The cardiologist saw Cora the following week. The echocardiogram showed a small ventricular septal defect, a hole between the chambers of the heart, present since birth, that had not been identified at the initial newborn screening because it was positioned in a way that made it less audible in the standard newborn exam positions. Small VSDs in infants frequently close on their own over the first 2 years. The cardiologist set up a monitoring schedule and told Grace that the prognosis was good, that they had found it at a stage that allowed for careful observation rather than immediate intervention, and that follow-up echocardiograms would track where the closure was occurring. On the way home, Grace thought about Oslo and the wall. Has your pet ever done something that made no sense until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. She did not leap to a conclusion. She was a data analyst by profession and had a trained skepticism about narrative causation, the tendency to construct explanatory stories linking events that may be coincidental. Oslo, staring at the wall for 11 days before a cardiology diagnosis could be explained by many things that had nothing to do with cardiac detection. Oslo, staring at a bird he could hear in the eaves. Oslo, staring at the heating system vibration in the wall. Oslo, staring at something Grace could not identify because she had not been at Oslo's position, at Oslo's eye level, investigating the wall from outside. She also read the literature. She read the studies on canine cardiac detection, the documented ability of dogs to detect the specific sound patterns of irregular heartbeats through proximity. She read the analogous literature on cats and auditory sensitivity, which was less comprehensive but consistent in direction. Cats have a hearing range extended to 79 kilohertz, compared to the human range that ends around 20 kilohertz. And they register vibration through multiple sensory channels that detect sounds far below the threshold of normal human hearing. A small ventricular septal defect produces a characteristic sound, detectable apparently to a cardiologist's stethoscope at 7 months, and possibly detectable to a cat's multi-channel acoustic system through a wall. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. She could not confirm this. She was also not comfortable dismissing it. She had made note of the 11 days, of the behavior's onset, of the specific wall outside Cora's room. She had no other explanation for behavior that was new and specific and that Oslo had stopped. She checked on the day of the cardiologist's appointment, as though the visit to the hospital had closed the loop he had been running. Oslo was at his usual position by the bird feeder window when she came home. He looked at her, at Cora, at the carrier, and the specific inventory-taking sequence of a cat confirming that the household count was correct. Then he went back to the birds. The VSD closed on its own by Cora's second birthday. The cardiologist called it a favorable outcome and discharged Cora from the monitoring schedule with a follow-up at age 5. Grace noted this in the same document where she had noted the 11 days in March. She did not annotate it further. The document existed. The facts were in it. What they meant she was still working out in the careful, non-narrative way of someone who has been trained to distinguish between correlation and cause. She had not reached a conclusion. She was watching Oslo by the bird feeder. She thought he was watching something. For 11 days. Through a wall. She thought, that is what I know.